Welcome to the Breakaway USA show. My name is Fabian. We have Michael with us, and we have a very special guest, the famous Seek Smith, founder of the Mom Army. Great to have you, Seek. It's always a pleasure. We just had a great Instagram live, and now we're continuing the conversation here on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to have these conversations with you guys. It's been great.
And it's good to work with you in general. I'm looking forward to working together a lot as well, because I think we can, you're doing great stuff. The Dad Army is doing great stuff. And what we're trying to do here at Breakaway USA is to further the conversation and build a community of people and empower people to speak. And because I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, all you have is your words, and then those words become actions. So if it doesn't begin with the language and it doesn't begin with your rhetoric, you're never going to make those actions. So the communication is so important. So I'm very inspired by what you do.
And I say for what's happening right now is we need to speak the bold truth, and hopefully that will cause a ripple effect and give people courage to do the same.
Yeah, I think the more that people see other people, and I'm sure in our DMs, we all see the same thing, because I know I do. And if I do, I know that both of you do as well, where people say, you know what, I'm so glad you're speaking up. Like, what you're doing is incredible. I wish I could do it, but insert excuse here. But the more that we do it, the more they feel empowered to actually do it themselves. Because, I mean, people are so scared of saying what they want to say, because they think there's going to be this crazy backlash. I think you say what you want to say and nothing happens. And you're like, wait, okay, so it was all just a ploy to get me to not say what I want to say.
Yeah, they're trying to cause this chilling effect. And and in some parts of the country, sure, people have lost their jobs, people have had some repercussions, but I tell you what, for everybody who has had that happen to them in our group, they've gained a bigger community, they've gained bigger support, they've gained, you gain more than what you've originally lose. Yeah. So that's, to me, that's the inspiring message and the hope in all of this. It's like, yes, you will probably have some sacrifices to make when you do speak the truth, but guess what? On the other side of that, they're gonna gain so much more.
And it was probably a job that they didn't like anyway. It was a job that they were doing. So it's almost like helping them. Guess what? You're free from your shackles of constraining your voice, and you're free from that job you didn't want anyway. Go do something else, because it's something better that you like.
And you really want to work for somebody that will do that to you? I'm not 100%. Sure about that.
We're becoming more and more aware of where people's values are, especially in big companies, and what their core values are, and they're not what we align with. So
I feel like people are becoming more intentional.
Yes, exactly. That's a good way of putting it. They're becoming more aware of their actions and not just kind of skating through life.
It's interesting, because Michael and I talk a lot about the parallel economy, which if anyone listening or watching doesn't know what that is essentially just a business or a company or an organization that aligns with your values. So instead of you spending your money at Target, where they're funding abortions and things like that, you can instead of spending your money at a company that has your values in mind. But the interesting thing, as Michael was saying, that it kind of hit me, you're going to have a massive amount of people who are extremely good at their job, who in maybe just a few years' time are going to have the option to go work from one of these parallel companies. And you're going to have almost like a brain drain of people who aren't crazy leftists, green hair, whatever, people that are going to go work at these companies. And you're going to see possibly, I hope, this like degradation of the companies that are pushing this stuff, because all the people that work there are going to feel entitled, are going to have a different way of looking at what a job should provide for them. And a whole other economy that's thriving based off just traditional capitalist good morals and values. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, we're seeing, well, it's interesting. Your show is called Breakaway. We're seeing the breakaway, right? The split of society, and people are picking sides. Unfortunately, I mean, there was a time we didn't care about people's politics or where they stand. We just, but those days are gone. I was saying to my husband, like, those days are gone. And we do have to create this parallel economy if we're going to continue to thrive. I just can't continue to support people who hate me and hate my values.
And then use your money against you.
Yes.
Right.
Then there's that.
So what you were saying, what you guys were talking about in terms of people losing their jobs and whatnot, it made me think about January 6th and how the ultimate leftist tactic is making an example out of somebody so that other people will be reserved and avoid or refrain from taking action similar to that. So the January 6th political prisoners are exactly that to me. They are people that are being made an example of. I don't know if you're very familiar with what has gone on with them, but
Yeah, I've been following that pretty closely.
It's baffling to me that it's not more spoken about, because it is so, it's the antithesis to what America stands for. We have these, the FBI, that is a branch of the executive, it works for the executive branch. This is what Vivek Ramaswamy is talking about. The FBI works for the president, right? Like he can, if he becomes president, he can gut the FBI. But so you have this faction or this, organization within the executive branch that is going after American citizens that were not violent, that had no, there was no
due
evidence
process.
whatsoever, no due process. There's no evidence whatsoever that there was a planned insurrection. They completely eroded the meaning of the term insurrection. But so anyways, that's a whole nother discussion. But point being that,
I mean, on that front, my sister and her boyfriend was at January 6th, and they weren't even anywhere near the Capitol. They ended up back at their hotel when everything was going down. Months later, I get a text from her at 6 o'clock in the morning. She's like, "Oh my God, the FBI is at my door." So even for her and her boyfriend, the FBI came to her door.
And this is what the FBI is doing instead of tracking down child sex traffickers and tracking down people online that are exploiting.
They want more power, and cracking down on those people, sex traffickers, doesn't bring them more power. It takes away power because they can't blackmail people if they're all in jail. It's like a sick organization.
It's sickening. It's sickening to see what is.
Well, it's it's the decaying and the corruption that is widespread throughout every institution. We used to trust these institutions and maybe blindly, but now it's been so exposed. Ever since I've been, when you talk about awake, I think my awakening happened like 2007, during the Obama election. And I was a big Ron Paul supporter. So it's very independent. I was more, I'm very libertarian, small L libertarian. Let me preface with that. But all of that really allowed me to just really dig deep into the issues and what I stood for, what was important to me. But since COVID, like the one institution that I trusted blindly was the medical system, because I'm like, I'm not the expert. I didn't go to school. I don't have the white coat, and that
that's the illusion that's the illusion they've worked on for the last 50 years, right?
Yeah. And it completely got flipped on its head. And now I've always been skeptical. That's always been my nature because of my dad's history with communism and genocide. But, now I'm even way more skeptical of like every institution. I question everything.
Yeah. And I think it's a good thing that Americans have like seen this in mass, that the fact that the government is not out for your best intentions, is there to make you basically take your money in the form of tax and then tax that tax and then use it for whatever they want. It's incredible what's been happening because of things like X. Like people are awakening and seeing this for what it is, and all these conspiracy theories that are coming true. People were like, "Wait, what? Hold on, what?" And at some point, that's why I on my story I hammer things into people. Like I hammer facts into people, because like even if you don't agree with what you think is happening, when you see fact after fact after fact, at some point your mind's gonna go, "Wait, this must be right. Like this must be right." So I think it's a good thing that is happening.
Yeah.
So two things. One is that if there is a positive side to this whole COVID nonsense, right, which I have a whole nother perspective on, that is not, we don't have enough time to get into it now. But if there is a positive side to it, is that there is a huge awakening because of it, because everybody really saw how much power the government has. And even if they don't legitimately have it, even if they don't legislatively have it, they will use power that they don't have.
Yeah.
You look at the 2020.
people are really, as we could see with COVID, people were very quick to relinquishing
Oh yeah.
power and control over the most minor things,
Mhm.
And I think that was the hardest thing. And, I was in LA during, I grew up in LA and I was in LA. So the lockdowns and the COVID mandates were very draconian in LA, obviously, Fabian, And then my husband was going back and forth. His job asked him to come to Arizona, and we were coming once a month for a week out of each month. And it was very schizophrenic. I would go back and forth between the two places. And I'm like, wait, I feel freer in Arizona. And then I go back to LA and I'm like, oh my God, but it was good for me because I saw the contrast and it was clear as day, and where some people thought, well, this is just how it is. And I'm like, nope, no, get
No,
out of
this
LA and you will find out that's not how it is.
Oh yeah, no, the fear does a number on people. It really destroys people's soul. And so I live in Canada. I'm a dual citizen. I'm also American. My mother is American, father's Canadian. But so here in Canada, we don't have the same foundation in revolution. We don't have the same basis of liberty being at the core of our existence as a nation and our existence as a people. So Canada is very quick to cede any ground in fear with the government, and the government is very easily or very willingly kind of jumps on that whenever they can, jumps on any kind of little crease they see to get more power. The US still has that fighting spirit, that liberty at the foundation of it. So I think it's the last bastion for that free spirit and the foundational free spirit,
During COVID, and when I rode my bicycle across the country, I was in many different states. And
I love
like
how you just
said,
throw that out nonchalantly. You
I
always
rode
throw
my
that
bike across the
nonchalantly.
country. No biggie.
because I want to preface it. I bring it up to say I was in many states, and when we were talking about the schizophrenia, like between states, I saw that exact thing when I was in New Mexico. Compared to when I was in Colorado, it was like very weird, and like, everything was on lockdown. There was homeless people everywhere. Then I would go to Oklahoma and Texas, and it's free. We're in barbecues, like barbecue places, eating food, and then you go to the next state and it's complete lockdown. I'm like, what is happening? Like,
it's straight
whole
delusion.
different worlds.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Yeah, well, it's like that. I think that's the beauty of America, right? With all our different states. So it's almost like an experiment in each state. So you can see the contrast, I mean, just like we're seeing now, deep blue cities and states are going through so much turmoil because of their policies versus, states that are a little bit more liberty, freedom loving, independent thinking.
Well, the idea behind the federation, the U.S. being a republic, a federal republic, is that the states retain their autonomy and their sovereignty, and they have a majority of the power, and the federal government is not supposed to be able to dictate to the states. That has changed over time. I'm working on this founding documents series, Fabian, as you know, but I'm looking at the origins of the country and how it was a confederation, and there was the Articles of Confederation to begin with. They thought that the federal government wasn't powerful enough; didn't have the power to levy taxes. But so then they made a federal government that was a lot more powerful. But still, even to this day, even though there's been all this erosion in the Senate, in the executive branch, and this usurpation of power, we still see that the states have the power to dictate for themselves what
if you have
laws are
lawmakers who are willing to exercise their state rights,
exactly,
then they'll try and retain those those state rights. But then you have states like California that's relinquishing everything to the federal government.
That actually, that's the double-edged sword of it, is that the states have the power, but a state like California, where you have somebody like Gavin Newsom, who is the wokest clown there is, he's just destroying it. He's using that. They're pretty close. They're pretty close.
Yeah.
Well, and we're seeing that fight play out in front of us now with Ken Paxton from Texas and the Biden administration, where they're literally suing him to take down the buoys that they set to stop the illegal immigration, to take down.
That's an interesting issue to watch when it comes to states and federal government, right?
Yes.
It's the illegal, the border crisis, the invasion, however you want to phrase it. But it's interesting because what I was watching is that the New York mayor was trying to put a new ordinance or a new executive order in where you can't unscheduled bus drops can't
Yeah,
happen.
yeah.
And so the go around is like Abbott in Texas is dropping illegal migrants in New Jersey, and then they take the train the rest of the way into New York.
Oh, who doesn't
They
want to
drop
go to
them
New
on, say,
York?
there's
Yeah.
a bus.
Yeah.
And it's his tit for tat kind of thing.
Yeah, it
Um,
is, but that's the interesting thing of seeing how it's all being applied, right?
Yeah.
How it's being implemented, whether it's, state rights or whatever. So that's, we shouldn't be laughing at it because literally our country is falling apart,
Oh, it's absurd.
with
You're
what's
right.
going on with illegal immigration. But that is the interesting thing to kind of, watch what's happening on that front.
I'm interested, and I don't know, Michael, if you know this. If not, I'm sure we can research it. But I saw the lawsuit. I saw the cover page of the lawsuit that Abbott posted. He's a governor of Texas, that the Biden administration is suing him, but I haven't gotten into it. So I'm really curious, what's the reasoning of the lawsuit that they're trying to, or whatever it is that they're trying to get him to take it down? Like, what reason are they giving them for taking down the barbed wire and the crates and the buoys and the wall? I don't know what.
I mean, it's all absurd. So like to put any reason to it, to put any rationale to it is it's futile, because they have a goal in mind, right? They have the 2024 election in mind.
Yeah.
I think that's their ultimate goal, and they've been planning for 4 years how to make sure that Donald Trump's not going to get reelected. Just like from 2016 2020, they spent all these leftist think tanks have spent all of their time thinking, how can they get Donald Trump out of office and make sure he doesn't get reelected? And it worked.
And they're willing to go to the ends of the earth to do it, right?
Literally,
by any means necessary.
Yeah, exactly. The ends justify the means, because to them, he's an existential threat. And when something's an existential threat, like climate change,
you'll be desperate. You'll do anything. Imagine like going back into time, and if you could stop Hitler, right? Because that's how that's the lens they're looking at this from, and that's the only way we can try and understand like how chaotic things are, because they literally deem him as Hitler, so they're willing to go and do pretty much anything to stop him.
Yeah, exactly.
The funny thing is that, like, I can see that logic at least having a little bit of merit, that you're scared of Donald Trump if he hadn't already been president for 4 years.
Right.
And everything got better.
He was already president.
We have a track record.
Nothing happened. And they're using the same.
Everything was peaceful.
Arguments.
He's the first president in decades where there was no
who didn't start a new war. Yeah.
Who pulled out of multiple, like it's really.
You know what about Donald Trump?
Trump derangement syndrome is strong.
It's real. It's a real thing.
Yeah. The one thing I remember, and I'll never forget this, because I was trading a lot of stock during that time frame, is you could literally not watch the news and not much would happen. Like, you can actually turn away from the news and not be like, oh, I mean, a week later,
politics didn't dictate. Yeah, sure.
The news, Donald Trump said this, but nothing really happened as far as like, oh, wow, we're going to, now there's a new conflict somewhere. It was peaceful. So if if all it takes to be a good president is to really not do much.
One of the best presidents in American history is Calvin Coolidge, because he didn't do much.
Yeah. He just let people rule themselves.
He just literally didn't pass. Yeah. Like, if you look at his, his presidential record, he's considered one of the best presidents because he didn't do anything
in American standards, right? Like, so that's awesome.
He didn't cause any damage.
Yeah.
Well, the idea behind America is for the government to be there but not visible. The government should be as small as possible. And you, as a small L libertarian, you understand this. I understand why you say small L libertarian, because if you take libertarianism to its full
extreme,
I understand it. And I've been open to the idea of anarchy because of Michael Malice, and that's kind of the
that's a big L libertarians.
Right. But so in terms of where we are now, you can't just, even if that is your ideal, you can't just go there. So anyways, but so on a small L libertarian side, the government should not even know it's there. Yeah. But now we see it everywhere. We see it everywhere in everything we do.
It's seeped into every part of our lives. Every aspect of our life, is being controlled one way or another. And I think I've been diving. I have this obsession with Edward Bernays, who's the godfather of
Yeah,
propaganda in
yeah,
America.
yeah. He wrote the
So,
book
and
on
my
it,
background's in marketing and PR, so there's that too. But lately, I've just been looking more into it and just, just how much of our this illusion that's been created for us for our entire existence. We've all been under an illusion, and until you chip away at that and lift that veil to really get to the truth of things, you're just going to operate in a simulation, basically.
Yeah.
Be plugged
Yeah.
into a
You're an
matrix that
automaton. Yeah,
that is
100%.
not reality.
No,
It's
I
been
there's no
think
critical
created for
thinking.
you.
Yeah,
I think the few times in recent history that people have really seen past all the charades is when communism or socialism was instituted in the country and everything broke down, because then you couldn't hide anything. Like, everything was bad. There was no way you can paint over with a brush and say this is not happening.
Starvation, yeah,
Starvation,
mass
yeah.
starvation.
But it's sad that that's what it takes for people to be like, well, in certain situations that's what it took for people to be like, well,
Right.
hold on a second, what in the hell's going on? And that could very easily happen here.
Yeah.
Well, so Yuri Bezmenov talks about this. We're all familiar with. I think you're familiar with him. So he talks about. I spoke to Simon S. So you know Simon Essler? Is that right?
Simon's part of our Dad Army.
Right,
I was in
right.
his documentary, Khait, The Daughters
Yes.
of the West. He's an intricate part. He's basically heading up Dad Army.
He's brilliant.
So his voice
I'm very much
and just his
looking
research and
forward,
everything. Yeah, they're launching a podcast too.
Yeah. He's I'm looking forward to working with him. I'm looking to start, and we are going to start next week, a Canadian podcast to go through what's happening here, because
there's a lot there.
So
I can't wait to listen.
I'll get into it then. But
you were talking about Yuri
Bezmenov. So he talks about, I spoke about this with Simon a bit yesterday about the ideological subversion and how Khrushchev said that they're going to take down America without ever firing a shot. It's the idea of the long march through the institutions. They were going to subvert our entire society and our entire moral background and moral system from within, so that we would destroy ourselves from within. And we're seeing that play out. So the question is, what we're talking about is the chicken or the egg. Like, what came first? Is this a natural phenomenon of, with excess, with a higher standard of living, you're going to get these perversions, or is it completely planned out? Like Edward Bernays and these people that are doing this completely consciously and trying to mold people,
manipulate. Yeah.
So which is it? And it's a bit of both. It's inevitable. It's a bit of both.
Hadn't thought about it that way, but yeah, you can kind of make an argument for both, just the way things have transpired.
Right. Like, it's because the debauchery always existed in ancient Rome, in, societies, but for the affluent, for the people. And it was a small minority that had, all the riches and that were the wealthy in society. And these people, you hear stories about, or the mythology of them having, weird orgies and whatnot, and having transgender stuff. And this, so it's not a new phenomenon. It's just now it's gone through the entire society because we've developed these technologies that have allowed us to live at that standard of living,
right,
for all of society. Right. So there's a question there.
And then there's a component of, like, with technology the way it is, and information being able to be disseminated a lot faster than in recent history, is that you have, speaking of propaganda, right? Edward Bernays had to, like, print ads and do all these things. Right now, you can literally, like, mass get this information out to people, right? So there's this component of social engineering that's being done at like a mass scale, right? And you can look at that through the gender ideology, right? Like how that went. I mean, 10 years ago, we weren't talking about any of this stuff. And now you're talking about it. It was there, right? But it was kind of like an underbelly kind of thing. But it exploded and different things came into play. I always bring up the fact that Obamacare is a big contributor to why the gender ideology stuff exploded, because now insurance had to cover these surgeries as part of your coverage. And so in 2012 was when a lot of this stuff exploded because of Obamacare. And you really have to start looking into that.
Nobody was paying attention to it.
Yeah.
Well, they controlled all media. They controlled all the media, completely controlled stuff. And
Mhm.
now with X, you can really search. Like it's incredible to think about what will happen if, number one, Elon Musk succeeds, X stays, X becomes. I know they're almost breaking even at this point. Apparently, if X takes off, if everyone gets on it,
And Rumble.
And Rumble,
I saw
yes,
Dan
and
Bongino was the most streamed show
on Rumble.
No, even above any YouTube show on Rumble, but it was the highest. It was the founder of Rumble or the CEO of Rumble that shared it, that his show was streamed more than any show on YouTube.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it's really incredible to see or to
Yeah,
think
it's
about
hard.
what could happen.
You can't
if this
overstate
keeps
how
going.
important this X thing is. You really can't overstate how important Elon Musk
Mhm.
buying X is. It's really,
I agree.
it's world changing because
Yeah,
it was
and it's
going
crazy.
down.
It's crazy. All it is just the ability for people to exchange free ideas.
Mhm.
Like, it's
What
just
a
town
novel
hall. It's
idea.
crazy.
Right? Isn't that what America's built on? Is that
So
we have
curious, right?
free
Yeah, and we're like,
exchange
oh
of
my
ideas?
gosh, we can talk to each other without someone being in the middle. Wow, what are the so
Without
we're like,
experts chiming in. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
What a concept. Yeah.
Without
No, I really
fact-checking
do. I really hope
experts.
he's really successful at it. And I'm so sick of the censorship on Instagram. Like, we are so heavily shadow banned. It's
Yeah.
not even funny. So we're shifting a lot. We're gonna do a big shift over to X.
good,
Mhm.
good.
Yeah.
That's the move. Yeah, I posted a video about Bill Gates' ex-wife Melinda Gates speaking on like 60 Minutes, I think it was,
Mhm, mhm.
about
Yeah,
Bill
the
Gates and-
divorce. I
Yeah.
saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and Instagram did okay on on TikTok, literally 0 views, and the next day got taken down for hateful ideology.
Oh my God. I got
didn't
booted
appeal
off
it.
of a TikTok live because we were talking about the gender issue. This was right around the time we were doing the first Do No Harm protest in Anaheim, California against the American Academy of Pediatrics. So I was talking and promoting that rally, and TikTok had a conniption and literally booted me off for hateful behavior or whatever they called
Wow.
it.
I'm
TikTok
surprised it hasn't happened to us.
TikTok
Wow.
is the most restrictive one, I think.
Yeah.
I've actually stopped posting there. I actually built my biggest following on TikTok, but I've gotten so many warnings and so so I've refrained from posting there. But it's the most restrictive one, and I don't know why. But
Because it's owned by China.
Chinese. That's why. We actually want to.
Might have something to do with it.
what do they care? But what do they care about us posting stuff in the U.S. Then? We're not talking about the Chinese Communist Party, like there's something.
But that's not all they want. They want to drive us down.
But
Because
you don't think
Yeah.
we don't think that the CIA
They want us in the gutter with everything, with all the content on TikTok you can see, right?
Right. They don't want you criticizing the immoral stuff.
Yeah.
They want the moral decay.
So here's a funny story.
It weakens us.
Gentry, myself, and David, we went on TikTok live just to test out, the waters. And we're talking, and we never go live. We each have maybe like 10K on there, Anyway, like each or whatever. And we have like 5 viewers. And all of a sudden, I had a picture. David said, "Hey, you can change your background." So I had a picture of Hillary Clinton that I posted on Instagram, and I posted it as a background, and the viewers went from like 5 to 50. I said, "This is really weird." So we're talking, and we were like, "Oh yeah." So then David puts a picture of it was like a meme he had of the first astronaut to land on Mars or on the moon. It was like something about Hamas, right? And he put the flag.
Oh yeah.
And our viewership went to 500.
Oh my God.
And we were like, we figured out the algorithm. It was crazy.
That is crazy.
We switched it back to nothing, and our viewership went down. And we switched it back to the Hamas, and it was incredible. Like, we were just like, this is what they do. Like, in real time, we saw our viewerships go up.
And there's so much AI involved. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
that
we
is
started
fascinating.
In satire, saying Joe Biden is the best president ever. We only have 18% inflation, which is pretty cool considering, everything else. And then, but once we started talking negatively about them, the viewerships went down. So
it's a good experiment.
And this was on TikTok.
It was on TikTok.
Wow.
Yeah.
What we were talking about before on the live with the social media companies being implicated.
Complicit. Sorry.
Being complicit with all of this sex trafficking and pedophilia stuff, it really it
Yeah,
like
and this is not
how
speculation. It's there is data to back it up.
Mhm.
That's the thing, is people have to understand. We're talking, if you just look at, I mean, what social media blew up in the last, 10 years ago, right? Somewhere
Yeah,
around there,
roughly
20,
10, 15,
like
yeah.
2008, 2009, but going into
Yeah.
2012, especially the second Obama term, right? It was when
Mhm.
social media really exploded, Instagram and everything else. The data is there to show that their platforms is being used to traffic and exploit children. I mean, there are crazy stories. And I know, Fabian, you and I talked about it on some of the podcasts we did together, of a child being trafficked within like 30 minutes. Somebody's in her DM, says that they're going to pick her up because she got into a fight with her mom. And first you knew it. I mean, I know somebody whose daughter was trafficked through through a DM on Instagram. Her daughter's been missing for 4 years now. I mean, her
Oh,
story is a crazy case, and I'd love to. I mean, if you guys ever want to talk to her, her name is Robin Batman. I don't know. I still have to figure out if that's actually her real name, but
oh,
Robin
that's horrendous.
Batman out of Houston, who's been fighting to try and find her daughter. She was 15 at the time. Since her missing and being trafficked, and she came back home and then got trafficked again. They have convicted her perpetrator, her trafficker. He got 27 or 28 years.
Wow.
It's a mom and son duo that was trafficking her daughter. The guy's mom got 1 year. So these are convictions in the court of law, and they still haven't found her daughter. And she was trafficked because of a DM on Instagram.
I mean, at that point, they could be anywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, that's crazy.
What people don't,
it's pretty wild. I think she's 19 now. So yeah, so it's been 4 years.
and they don't know where she is. They haven't found her at all.
Have not been able to locate her.
This is so
But they've
foreign.
convicted 2 of the traffickers.
It's so foreign to the average person. To me, I'm becoming more and more aware of it, but it's so foreign as an idea that somebody's just missing. They're just gone. Your family member is just gone. It's insane.
Yeah, the number of kids that go missing a year is astronomical. I mean, there should be a ticker. You know how we have our national debt ticker, or we have the COVID ticker? There should be tickers for children who are going missing constantly throughout this country.
The turning a blind eye to it from the mainstream media it just says everything.
Yeah,
about how complicit they are as well. People above them are telling them not to talk about this.
Yeah,
clearly,
Yeah, because there's so many people entangled in all of this, in the exploitation of children.
Yeah,
because these people at high rungs of society, they've experienced everything there is to experience in terms of living, or maybe their sexual behavior and whatnot. They, I guess, become perverted in this. People like Prince Andrews or Bill Clinton, or they go down these routes that are unfathomable to us who are just normal people.
Well, I mean, a lot of it has to go back to things like Gnosticism and all these old ancient religions where, like, basically you would become one, and like you cast off all everything, and you're just one. And apparently when you're one, then you're one with the earth. And then it has a lot of it's a really weird stuff.
It is. Well, there's this whole belief that if somebody has sexual encounters with a virgin, right, or with a child that's innocent, that it gives them certain powers or certain, there's these weird belief systems that's been passed down throughout history, throughout history. And people, I mean, it doesn't sound right in modern times, but people still believe these weird. I mean, look at, I think it's in South Africa, right, because of the AIDS epidemic, that a lot of people who are inflicted with HIV and AIDS think that if they, if they have a virgin or a child, that it would cure them from AIDS. I mean, that's an actual belief system. So you can see how something like pedophilia is rampant, because you have these really wild belief systems that are being,
these primitive things. You had, you had child sacrifices not that long ago in terms of, in the context of the history of the universe, or even human history, right?
Well, if you talk to trafficking victims who were part of a cult, and different cults, they would tell you that it's still prevalent today.
Really?
The child sacrifice stuff. Yeah.
That's, I mean,
Yeah,
it's not
Alex
hard to
Jones
believe.
has some really interesting top. When he talks about this stuff, it's really interesting
Mhm.
because he's been to Bohemian Grove, he's been to these crazy places, and like when he says this is nothing, like the stuff is coming out. I'm like,
Mhm.
jeez, here we go.
I
So
mean,
I
he
have,
was right 20 years ago.
oh yeah, he's been
I
right the
only
whole.
learned about it. My husband was a truck driver for 15 years. He used to drive graveyard, at night. So he listened to talk radio. And so he came across Alex Jones and other people. And he would come home and tell me these things. And I'm like, it just
What are you
sounds so
smoking?
wild
Yeah.
back then, right? And then
Yeah,
all of that is like right in front of us now, And on the child sacrifice and occult stuff and satanic ritual stuff, we actually have a couple of people in Mom Army that were victims of that, so they're, yeah,
wow.
we do. And so, and a lot of these people are shunned and made to feel crazy and made to feel like their story isn't valid, because we
Yeah,
can't, because we,
Can't
normal
imagine it
society
really.
just can't wrap our heads around it.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I watched this YouTube channel called Active Self Protection a lot, and it's all about videos about people getting kidnapped or shootings and what you could have done better in a situation. Anyway, he says that one thing you always have to keep in mind is that criminals do not think like you. So
Mhm.
people are sitting there thinking, "Oh, they'll never do that." No, they don't think like you. You have to
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to cast off that normalcy that you have in your head, and these people will do anything,
humanity.
anything.
Yeah, yeah. They're
Yeah.
sociopaths a lot of the time.
I mean,
Yeah.
Hollywood movies couldn't even write up some of these scripts,
Oh yeah.
these
No,
horrific like true stories. I don't even think like the
they wouldn't get approved.
wildest.
Yeah, they wouldn't
Yeah.
get approved.
Yep.
It'd be like
No,
not
it
even
would be like, that's too
NC-17.
crazy to be a movie.
Right.
you
Right.
know?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have something that I've that has come across in discussion that I'd like to ask you actually, because there's other societies or other cultures that marry women off that
Mhm.
are essentially girls, right? So
Yep.
and women, girls get their period at 13 years old,
Yeah.
roughly.
It's getting lower now. I mean, now I
It's
think
getting
it's,
lower. Oh no way!
yeah,
Oh,
because of
because of
our
hormones.
processed food and all hormones in our food and stuff like that. But the average used to be about 13, but I think now it's going down to like 10, 11.
Holy moly! Okay.
Mhm.
But so let's say the average age of getting a period historically has been 13 years old.
Yeah.
I feel like Muslims would marry off their daughters at like 13, 14 years old
Mhm.
and have kids with them, right?
Yeah.
So this is something that is so foreign, like it's unimaginable to us in Western civilization. But there is a culture of that in foreign lands, let's say.
Mhm.
But I'm like, the biology kind of might say something about that. Like, okay,
Yeah.
if a woman can have a kid at that age, is biology saying they should? But at the same time, we've seen the development cognitively of boys and girls really be extended. For example, a 20-year-old boy today is like, a 12-year-old boy, let's say 100 years ago. There's not the
Mhm.
same development.
Well, not anymore. I think it's the opposite now. You have full-grown men now who are children still
Right,
mentally.
but that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. The
Yeah.
development is a lot slower.
No, it's an
That's a weird
interesting
one
it's
for
an
me.
interesting point you're bringing up, right? Like that biologically, yes, a young girl can be
And bear a
can
child.
become a mom and can carry a life once you start your cycle. But the question is, at that age, we've learned that a 12-year-old being pregnant, it could be detrimental to
Oh,
their physical structure, right? Because they're not fully developed yet.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean, throughout society, throughout history, that was the measurement for when a woman, a young girl should become a mom. And we know better now. Society evolves, right? We understand that that a child that's still a child,
mhm, mhm.
Yeah. Also,
but it's
those are
interesting
very
that you
extreme
brought up the child
societies.
bride stuff too, because I was watching, this was years ago, and I see the footage being circulated again, but it was a CNN special, and there was a 60-year-old man who was purchasing his 9-year-old bride from the family. And CNN is documenting this, right? So the reporter, the
Without
camera
any
guy,
commentary. Just like
yeah,
it's
and
like it is
she
what it
was
is.
just, and I literally, when I watched this many years ago, I was screaming at the television when I was at the time when I actually watched CNN, and I was like, get money out of your pocket and you purchase that child and give that money to that family and protect that child from going with the 60-year-old man. But no, they wanted everything to transpire. And you watch this 9-year-old girl walk off with this 60-year-old man, you know, in that footage. And it was
like, okay, that's a
so
different
hard to watch.
culture. It's like, that's a different culture, so we accept it. No, I mean, that's
No.
But so there's things that happen in Saudi Arabia, for example, where they still have public executions, where they will chop off a woman's head if she is unfaithful to her husband.
Right.
That seems barbaric.
Or stoned, or getting stoned and stuff. You know, and I you know, there's that moral conversation that comes up, right? You know, it's like, do we, because it's not our culture, do we just hands off? You know, but I mean, if we want to talk about we're all one and we're humanity, you know, there is, you know, the fighter in me and the rebel, you know,
for them, of course.
Yeah, you know, you always, I teach my children. I have 2 adult sons and my daughter's 13. But, you know, I always have taught them since they were little that you always stand up for what's right, even if you have to stand up alone. That's always the rule in our house. Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, I think this is a good place to wrap it up. I think we've had an incredible conversation, and anyone who's listening probably went through a roller coaster of emotions listening to this conversation.
I know we kind of went all over the place, but
yeah,
I love that. I mean, I can talk about just anything because I'm intrigued, and you know, I try to stay informed as best as I can. You know, and if I have information that I can share that could be helpful, you know, that's what I try to do.
Yeah. Well, we want to definitely thank you for your time, Seak. Super looking forward to having more conversations about this, and I'm going to go down some rabbit holes as well. Some things that you mentioned.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for everything you guys have coming and what you're building and what you're creating. I think is so needed. You know, we talked about this. There's so many people that need a platform to speak up. And I think what you're doing is very noble to give people a platform to share content that's important to a lot of people.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Really appreciate your work too, Seak. It's it really pushes people like us, and hopefully we can push other people to also get involved and speak, because for us to be able to reestablish some kind of normal baseline, we all need to be involved. We all need to be responsible citizens and citizens that are, you know, involved in our communities and in our society. So appreciate what you're doing, and
we got a country to save, so everybody better, you know, all hands on deck.
Better buckle up.
Exactly.
Yep, buckle up. It's gonna be an interesting year.
Oh, it's gonna be an interesting year for sure.
Thank you guys
so much. And if you're listening to this, thank you for sticking around this long. Please make sure you follow us as well as Seak. Seak, it's the.momarmy
on Instagram.
The.momarmy. And obviously, if you're not following us, then I'm gonna send you a meanly worded letter. Breakaway _ USA. All right, see you guys.
All right, take care. Bye, Seak.